What up, y'all? Back here with another video for you. I got the next part of my power metal section. This is the last bit of the more traditional power metal section. I call this power speed. So it's a little bit more like your American power metal, a little more traditional metal as opposed to being super epic and bombastic. So this is going to be Q through W, and we are going to be listening to Fortress Themes Pour la Rebellion in the background. If you guys aren't familiar with this one, you're really missing out because this is one of the best black metal bands going at the time. Probably my favorite of the Quebecois scene, either this band or SDG, but I would consider this more of like what you think of when you think of Quebecois, because SDG is a little earlier. Really great stuff. A little more angry than what they were on like La Sèvres de Notre Époque and Metal Noir Quebecois, things like that. Really top shelf stuff, though. Everything this band has done, I think, has been at least very good, if not amazing. Like La Sèvres de Notre Époque is one of the greatest black metal albums of the past 20 years, I'd say. Anyway, that's enough Fortress. I'm not drinking a beer. I just came back from dinner, so I'm just drinking some water. We're gonna start off with Queensryche. Amazing EP. One of the greatest American metal EPs of all time, unquestionably, as far as I'm concerned. It took me a while to actually get a hold of this one, but it's a really great, basically like beefed up style for like an Iron Maiden album, but beefed up. That's kind of the best way that I could really say what this sounds like. It just kind of has some really good catchy hooks. Jeff Tate's vocals are just absolutely brilliant, and I think this is the best Queensryche ever was, as far as I'm concerned. That being said, I do have two more from this band. I have Rage for Order, and I honestly haven't listened to this in years. I don't remember very much from this record. I really do need to put this back on the player sometime. I have a weird taste in my mouth when it comes to Queensryche. Same thing goes for Operation Mindcrime, and I know this is like the classic Queensryche album in a lot of people's mind, but I just haven't spent a lot of time with it, really. I want to like these more than I do, so I'm definitely going to have to put these back on the player sometime. We just got our first Blizzard of the year, so we're going to be listening to some black metal for a good long while, I would say. Really hyped on that, though. I do love the Snowfall. Anyway, we're going to go on over to some Running Wild now. This is Under Jolly Roger. I don't have any of the earlier stuff. I tend to really get into liking this band come this pirate era, and this is a brilliant album. I find this so catchy and fun, and I just randomly get the title track stuck in my head sometimes. Like, if I'm not listening to this, like, I haven't listened to this in a while, and I just love it. Every time I hear it, it hits the spot, and the fact that it gets stuck in my head even after not hearing it for a while is a real testament to how catchy and good kind of epic heavy metal, power metal can really be. And Under Jolly Roger is an amazing thing. And Port Royal, I don't exactly know how it's properly pronounced, is just about as good. I haven't spent as much time with this one as I have Under Jolly Roger, but it's just great, dude. These guys really graduated to a much cooler style than their speed metal beginnings, though nonetheless I love the speed metal style. I just think this really differentiates them from the rest of the German heavy metal scene, as far as I'm concerned, and that's an amazing album cover. I mean, come on now. Next, Sanctuary with Refuge Denied. This is a classic, unequivocally a classic, and I don't hold it in as nearly high regard as some people tend to. I am not a fan of Warldane, his vocals. I don't know anything about the guy. I don't really care about that. But his vocals don't sit well in my ears. I don't like Nevermore. I've tried. I really have. And I thought this would be a really good way to get me, kind of into Warldane's vocals and maybe use that to get into Nevermore. Never really worked on me. I'm going to have to give this another listen sometime. I don't know, man. It's just, it kind of ruins the whole thing for me. The music is amazing, obviously, and like White Rabbit is a really cool cover for them to do. I've grown to really like that song in general after hearing people like Molly Tuttle play it, if you're into like bluegrass, and I really just enjoy that song quite a bit, so it fits really well on this album, and it's right in the middle of everywhere, so I'll revisit it. We're about to go to one of my favorite metal bands of all time, which is probably what you figured already, which is Sabotage. This is Sirens and the Dungeons Are Calling. This is just seriously one of the greatest pairs of album and EP in human history. Sirens is just a brilliant album, and I honestly like The Dungeons Are Calling even more than I like the title of the song, the album Sirens. By the Grace of the Witch is one of my favorites. Midas Night is very cool. Twisted Little Sister's kind of a weird song. I Believe is a cool song. Holocaust, the title track Sirens, dude. Just an all-around brilliant album. Super catchy, heavy for its day. John Oliva's vocals are just absolutely killer. And Power of the Night is also amazing. This is a Atlantic Press, an earlier one. This came out in '85. I think this might be the '85 Atlantic Press, if I'm reading what I have on here correctly. I know that's pretty early for CDs, so I don't exactly know. But everything about this album is really fun. Stuff like Skull Session is really funny. It's just sleazy and gross, but like Necrophilia is like that's a pretty gnarly song for '85. I mean, especially to be in like a more and to be in a style of which you hear the lyrics a lot better compared to '85 Slayer was doing hella weights and stuff like that. That's pretty aggressive for its time, and Venom was already around, but stuff like that's heavy for the day, dude. Really great record. This is probably one of the most divisive albums in the catalog. This is Fight for Rock. I have all the full lengths from this band, so we're going to be on Sabotage for a bit. So this is an album a lot of people dislike, but I tend to not hate nearly as much as others do. But stuff like Hide is an amazing song. That is my favorite song easily on here. Lady in Disguise is really cool. Out in the Streets is cool. Crying for Love is a great one. But if like you took Hide and put it onto Power of the Night, it would fit perfectly. So there are some real gems on this album. But it's just like not all there. This is a bit of a label interference album for sure. But one thing that's really cool about this one is it comes with a bonus track of the song This Is Where You Should Be, which was recorded during the Hall of the Mountain King session. And as you know, Hall of the Mountain King is the greatest metal album of all time. As far as I'm concerned, you don't beat it. And this, I can't say enough good things about this. You guys know that this is just brilliant. If you haven't listened to it, please stop doing yourself such a grievous disservice, because it's just so good, dude. Every song on here is unquestionably perfect and catchy and fun, while also maintaining a deep level of darkness to it and creepiness. It is all around. I don't know what my favorite song is on here, because that's borderline impossible. But I tend to have Strange Wings stuck in my head all the time. Strange Wings. Anyway, Gutter Ballet. Another brilliant album. I haven't exactly digested this quite as much as some of the other bits of their catalog, but this is a great record. This kind of has the South of Heaven syndrome, where you have to follow up a brilliant album with something else, and it's never going to be quite as amazing. So I understand that. I really do like this album cover. I think it's very cool. You see like the ghost ballerina, and there's a piano with a giant guitar stuck through it, and then you have all of the spectral commentators in the background. Really great record all around. The song Hounds is really good. This title track, Gutter Ballet, is great, but I think my favorite song in here is actually one that's not technically part of the album until a later date, which is Thorazine Shuffle. Just really great. And this specific one also comes with an acoustic version of Handful of Rain that John Oliva does. What's really cool about these Sabotage reissues is a lot of them have stuff like that on them. Just like this one also does too. Streets, a rock opera. This actually took me forever to like. I didn't like this album for a long time. Back when I did that ranking on Eli's channel, Dark Hymns from the Cold North, I said in the video that this was near the bottom of my list for a long time until I really went ahead and started listening to it more and more. And every time I played it, I liked it even more. And just all around, it's a great album. It's heavy and it's dramatic. It's so dramatic, dude. And I feel like that's something that this band really encapsulates well. It makes good sense considering they would go on to form TSO. And the song "This Isn't What We Meant" is the highlight of the bonus tracks because it's another acoustic version from 2010. I would like to know the context of why all these acoustic versions of songs were getting played in 2010. What was going on? Was this a live show? And if so, can I get a copy of the CD? Anyway, this is an older pressing of Edge of Thorns, one of the greatest album covers in the Sabotage catalog. Brilliant album. I'm imagining that woman's a fairy. I've just kind of always thought that. But this album did not exactly hit me like I thought it would. Judging by the album cover, I thought it was going to be a lot more mystical. I got into this pretty early into getting into Sabotage, so I didn't exactly know the trajectory of their catalog. But I wound up listening to this and being a little underwhelmed, as it was in the first round. But as I've grown to listen to it more, I've grown to enjoy it quite a bit. And like Degrees of Sanity is a great song. All That I Bleed, He Carves His Stone might be the best song on here, but Damien is also a super top shelf song. They've kind of lightened up the sound a little bit, kind of like what they did from Gutter Ballet on. I feel like this is those two are like a bit of an era, more of a concept and theatrical style. And this kind of is a transition period between this one and this atrocity, which is Handful of Rain. This is a horrendous album. I don't really like anything about it, other than some of the songs are kind of catchy. I feel like saying I don't like anything about it is a bit of an exaggeration, but it just doesn't do it for me. It just reeks of the early 90s, and like, if this kind of really hits some label interference in my brain, because I don't think they would have done a record like this if there wasn't something like that. Now, if I'm wrong, please feel free to let me know in the comments, because it is one of my favorite bands, and I would just like to know as many things about them as I possibly can. But if I have to pick a favorite song on here, it would probably be Castles Burning or the title track Handful of Rain. But stuff like Taunting Cobras is awful, dude. This band, this is a swing and a miss on their stuff for sure. But luckily, they followed it up with a great album, which is Dead Winter Dead. I find this album to be a complete masterwork. This is my favorite non-Chris Oliva album. It's just brilliant. It's atmospherically dense. It's conceptually deep. And it just really encapsulates the atmosphere of like a cold Christmas era Eastern Europe. It's really pretty, and it's really somber all at the same time. Obviously, knowing anything about the history of Eastern Europe, it is absolutely destroyed by war time and time again, and that's where my family is from as well. I exist because of the warfare that's gone on there, because of my grandparents moving to America to avoid such things. And it's just really, I don't know, I feel like there's like a generational, I don't know what the word would be. It feels as if I have a generational association with things, even though I have never actually lived through such war-torn atrocities. But it just really hits hard for me, dude. I love this album. It's so good. This is a decent album. This is The Wake of Magellan. It's really slow. It's a tough listen your first go through, and I feel like if you're not a big Sabotage fan, this is a tough thing to stomach. And it's barely a metal album. It's very prog rock. A lot of pianos, a lot of keyboards, and that was kind of what John Oliva was doing for a lot of it. He kind of distanced himself from being the focal point of this band for a long time, and he kind of more like ghost wrote as opposed to really feeling like, it kind of doesn't feel like he wanted to be a part of it as much as he wanted to go do his own thing. Which, thinking about like John Oliva's Pain, I need to get a hold of those. I really need to get a hold of those. So it's a decent record all around. It's not amazing, but it's definitely a decent record. It's listenable for sure. And I find this to be a pretty decent album as well. This is Poets and Madmen. Um, it kind of sits in between Dead Winter Dead and The Wake of Magellan in my book. Dead Winter Dead is a genuinely brilliant album, and The Wake of Magellan is a pretty good album. I would consider this to be in between the two somewhat. The return of John Oliva on lead vocals is a wonderful thing to set it over the edge for me because I think he's brilliant. I absolutely love this album cover. I just think that that is so cool. It gives me a King Diamond feel. There's a dragon, which, as you know, is a number one request for me to have every album have dragons on it. Gets me hyped, man. I have a thing for dragons. I think I always have my entire childhood, even growing up to be an adult as I somewhat am. There's dragon statues on top of the CD rack here. I was going through my old toys in my mom's basement. I found a bunch more dragons. It's just something I've always loved. So seeing them on album covers gets me hyped. All right, we're finally out of Sabotage, and we're going to be going to Secret Sphere from Italy with the album Mistress of the Shadow Light. Now, this is something I blind bought. I don't remember where. I think it might have been my old local shop, Siren Records. And it's kind of a prog power metal album. And it rides a bit in the speedy camp as well, I would say. Somewhere in that general vicinity, you could probably get an idea of how it's going to sound based on how cool that album cover is. I do really enjoy it. I've always really liked this kind of late 90s style of power metal, and these guys tend to have like a bit of a Greek style to them. If you guys know much about the Greek power metal, it has a peculiarity to it that I would consider to be pretty one of a kind, I would say. And if you like that kind of stuff, definitely check out the Secret Sphere record. I feel like I need to refamiliarize myself with a little bit more as well. Next, another really great record, which is Redemption Through Force by Solitary Sabrid. This is the only metal album from the country of Cyprus that I own, and it is a great record. It has some really good early power metal and speed metal moments to it, and a borderline epic metal qualities in a whole lot of spots. It kind of reminds me of some Manila Road stuff as well as some Omen stuff, which is a really good recipe for success. My one complaint is that the vocals have this odd filter on them. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I don't really know what putting chorus on a vocal layer would sound like, but I kind of imagine it's something like that. If you guys have heard this album and you happen to know what it is, feel free to let me know in the comments as well, because I would love to know things about the music I listen to. Really cool record, really cool album cover. This knight fighting a witch, and I'm imagining this to be a throne room. It somewhat looks like a church, kinda. I don't really know. Anyway, next, Trauma with Scratch and Scream. If you guys don't know Trauma, this is a San Francisco, I believe, based speed metal band, and it was indeed Cliff Burton's band before Metallica. He was not on this album. This came out in, I think it was 85. It doesn't say on the back. But yeah, this came out after Cliff was out of the band, and it's killer. It kind of reminds me quite a bit of Flotsam and Jetsam, but a little less thrashy and a little bit more heavy metal, which would kind of keep it pretty more solidified into this power speed section, as opposed to, excuse me, Flotsam and Jetsam being more in the thrash camp for me. But if you do like stuff like that, I think you could really get down with this, and I feel like people don't particularly talk about this. You'd think the notoriety of having Cliff Burton as a founding member would be enough to kind of push them over the edge into a bit more of a listener's mainstream, as opposed to the proper mainstream of metal, which is a cesspool. So check out Scratch and Scream. Tyrant, Mean Machine. If you guys don't know this brilliant album, it is a German heavy metal band. I don't particularly remember the chronology of when this came out in their catalog. I believe it's first, if not, it might be second. But this is a great album. A great piece of German borderline speed metal. But it's definitely got some weirder parts to it. I don't know. There's something a little extra heavy about this. I would compare it probably closest to things like Gravedigger. If you like Gravedigger, I feel like you would dig on this record. Check out this really weird look these guys are going for. They kind of look like that the characters in that vampire movie that Gene Simmons was like the lead of like a vampire gang or something like that. I don't remember if you guys ever have, I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie, or if you have, if you remember it. But it's a great piece of German heavy metal. There's a funny song in here called Making Noise Drinking Beer, Blood Sucking Woman, you know, Grapes of Wrath. Just really, it's just German heavy metal from '84, dude. You guys get the point. It's great. A little bit on the power metal side, a little more speedy. Great stuff. This is Valley of the Lost, which is misspelled on the side by Winterlong. It is Valley of the Lost, actually. So this is a Swedish heavy metal band, power metal band from the late 90s. I think they're since defunct. Actually, they're definitely since defunct, and are not anything amazing, but it is pretty good. It is all around a pretty normal, run-of-the-mill, late 90s, kind of not so epic power metal band. More of the old school style in the late 90s, which is probably what I would attribute their lack of notoriety to, because I feel like if you weren't epic in the late 90s, you weren't getting nearly as much attention. But nonetheless, it's really cool. This features one of the guitar players from Sabaton, who was in the band from like 2012 to 2016, so he would have been touring with the band when I saw them. But beyond that, nothing too amazing or noteworthy, apart from if you like old school power metal, check this album out. Another one of the old school power metal vein, which is Wizard with Bound by Metal. I've had this for a while, and I don't particularly remember a lot of it, other than the fact that it sounds quite a bit like what you'd expect it to. Check out these guys. There's something going on there. I don't know. When I see like short hair guys, I feel just like, what are you doing in a power metal band? You have like a full head of hair, and it looks like you're wanting to be metal to the bone. I mean, this homie's got leather pants on, so I'd imagine he means business. But he's still got like the schoolboy haircut. I don't know. This isn't a fashion video, so I'm not too concerned with that. But yeah, this sounds quite a bit like Manowar, like you'd expect. Check out that album cover. This giant wizard man in the background putting magic into this giant ring. And a bunch of buff dudes holding it with chains while a dwarf hits it with a hammer. It's dorky. It's really dorky, and it's everything you would expect it to be. So, I'm going to leave it at that, y'all. We're going to be cutting on into the epic and symphonic power metal sections after this. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be back soon on Tuesday. I'll catch y'all later. Keep it greasy.